It's going to be a weird ass day today, ladies and gentlemen. We are staying in. We're not going for our normal morning commute often. I go out for always. Go out for like a 30-minute walk every morning to like clear my head, to get down into the zone so I can get some work done. This morning we're jumping on the work early. We have already gone through and we're like focusing on smaller tasks because I'm heading out soon. I'm actually struggling to find things that fit into this time period, which is always something I do. When I feel like I'm waiting to go somewhere, if that makes sense, I always feel less productive because I'm like, oh, what can I fit into that? Well, that's a bit too big. And then I end up like saving things to do later, which is dumb. You should just work through things, which I'm about to start doing. Because in about an hour and a half, we're heading out to go to a co-working thing. So I have a co-working office. So I have an office in a building that does co-working. I can just go there more or less whenever I want to just kind of sit and do some work. But this is like a meetup thing, which is like an organized thing for freelancers who want to go and work and just kind of sit on their laptops and work around other people. Sounds weird, right? But there are supposedly 13 people going, and they're all just like freelancers that go and sit and work and do things together, which I think is going to be good because like it does get to you not having anyone to talk to, and I know that if there's one thing that I'm really bad at, it's talking to people when I don't have to talk to them. If I'm in a situation where like I can't get out of talking to someone, I can put on this like facade, this like skin that is really like looks really confident and looks really like and is comfortable talking to people, but really I hate it deep down. But what I'm terrible at is going out of my way to do that. So to go out of my way to go and talk to people is something that I'm terrible at, and it's something that I'm been trying to put off, but it's something that I've got to get used to. I've got to get into it. It's one of the biggest things that you have to do as a entrepreneur, and that's network. But yeah, so I'm gonna go see what it's like. It's the first time I've ever been. I'm gonna see what the crack is, see if I like it. If I don't like it, I can always come back. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to that, kinda. But yeah, I was gonna go to one. They organised one for tomorrow, which they had to cancel. Yeah, tomorrow, which they had to cancel, which was at an actual co-working space. But this is at a pub / a bar thing that I actually quite like. This is one of my favourite bars. But I feel like that might add a weird dynamic because obviously you're in a pub or bar, and I don't really want to spend much money, or any money if I can avoid it. So I'm taking my own lunch, I'm taking a water bottle, obviously, and I'm like, is there things... So that's the one thing, like going out to do things like this do cost money, and I think part of me is using that as an excuse not to want to go in a way, to be honest with you, but that's life. This is just going to be one of those challenges we're going to get over today. But let's get back onto some work. Got an hour and a half to fill. Let's do that code review that I was, for some reason, saving to do on my laptop. And it's about time to get ready. At the moment, it's got to be said, I am struggling to get down what I want in this application. I kind of feel like I'm so far on the edge of of the criteria that I'm pushing it just a bit too far. And it kind of feels like I'm just kind of throwing time at this thing that I'm not actually convinced is going to work. Like I'm just too much of a edge case. But maybe an edge case is good. And it's one of the things where it's like some kind of feedback on this would be valuable no matter what. And that's what I need to keep telling myself. But it's reading the questions that I'm basically answering, and I'm like, I don't have a good answer. I know I don't have a good answer for this. / I know I don't have the answer that you want me to have. And effectively just having to be honest about that fact. It's difficult. It's difficult to like, it's demotivating is what it is. Right, I need to get my bag ready, guys. I'm in town, I'm a little bit early. So I'm just I definitely don't want to be first there. I'm really nervous, so I don't really know what to say and this kind of thing. But that's life. I'll put on my facade and we'll be okay, we'll get through it. But otherwise, I've just been bussing down, trying to zone out, listening to my podcast, trying to figure out my plan of attack. My plan of attack, mate. You know what? That's pretty cool. I think I'll definitely go back to that. I mean, I did bail before they all like broke off for lunch, and I didn't really talk to that many people, but I listened in and spoke to some people. So yeah, I'll definitely go to that. It's almost like going to my real office, but it's like properly free, I guess. And there's like people there that kind of the whole point is that you're going to talk rather than at my real office. The point really isn't that you will talk, you know what I mean? So you go and do work. I'm just trying to figure out whether or not I'm going to stop off. I'm waiting for Laura now to have lunch. Trying to figure out whether or not I want a hot chocolate. I just filled my water bottle. I just want a hot chocolate for the sake of having a hot chocolate. It's not even that cold. If it was a Cafe Nero, maybe I'd be more likely. I could walk to a Cafe Nero, granted, but I'm not going to, because I don't have a revenue stream yet, and I can't just frick money away on unnecessary things like that when I could just get a free bottle of water and not get fat as well. Really productive day today. I had lunch with Laura and then came back, so I got back quite a bit later than I would have normally done. So I didn't go for my walks today because I obviously spent so much time on the bus and then waiting for Laura and then whatever. So I was kind of expecting today to be a bit of a drop in productivity. I mean, I scheduled about 6 hours worth of work, but all of that was in work that is hard for me to do, so it's kind of more valuable, if that makes sense, because it's all of the like admin-y stuff that I find quite difficult to chip through on a normal day. It was pretty good. So yeah, this morning I did a lot, like loads of my application stuff, and then this afternoon when I got back, I was really expecting to just get back and then kind of not get into the zone, but I actually made a significant amount of progress on the next blog that I'm going to be releasing on Varialis. I'm thinking about splitting it into 2 or 3 blogs instead of 1, because it's getting big, because it's got code in it and stuff, and I feel like I'm trying to cram too much into it, and I feel like if I went to a blog that was massive, well, to be fair, I get annoyed when they're in separate parts. But if I do split it, because I'm trying to do this thing where I upload a blog every 2 weeks. If I do split it, then I'll upload it weekly or even quicker. But yeah, I am quite proud of myself today. I've got a significant amount of work done. And like I say, it was work on stuff that I've been struggling with so far, so it's pretty good. One morning, I'm going to bring my skateboard to this park, because no one's ever here in the morning. They're always here in the afternoon. I probably should do it before schools go back as well, because there might be some kids that come here before school. Kids don't do that kind of shit. I'll be alright. I'm on a somewhat boring walk today because I need to come back via Sainsbury's, otherwise I'm not going to have any sandwiches to eat for my lunch. So we're on just like a quiet whip around. Sainsbury's opens at 8, so we'll get in there as the doors open, be one of those sad ones that queue outside of it for some crazy reason. Speaking of school kids, they look like they go to school, so maybe schools are already back, who knows. Fuck it, let's go this way. So today we have an exciting day ahead of us today. We're going to get quite a lot of work done, and we're going to finish off quite a few things that kind of in flight, and we're going to start something new that I've never done before. I want to have, by the end of today, my main priority is to get my function, my Azure function, deployed into my test environment, which is going to be interesting because I've never written an Azure function that uses PowerShell before. I've never written one that uses the same bindings that I'm going to be using for this one. It's exciting stuff. So there's a lot of new things going on. I've got to integrate it with certain stuff and all of that. It's going to be one of those days where I write 4 lines of code. But at the end of it, I have something really cool. So yeah, I'm going to have to do a bit of reading on how to authenticate this thing, how it even binds in the first place. I'm definitely like pushing the... Again, it's one of them things where I'm pushing like what people normally do with this stuff, which is going to be fun. But it's in PowerShell, which is a thing that, obviously I'm a C# developer. PowerShell basically is the .NET Core framework, especially PowerShell Core. But yeah, so it's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. I'm ready and raring to go, to be honest with you. And then on top of that, I'm going to finish off some of the things I was working on yesterday, which I got really good steam on. I'm going to try and finish those things off. So that's going to be good. I'm feeling productive. I'm feeling like I'm in a good, productive mood, which is always good. So yeah, it's also really quite cold this morning. It's really sunny and the skies are clear, so I think it's going to warm up later. But this morning it's like 10 degrees, which is bizarre. I normally work up a bit of sweat on these walks, you know, work up a bit of a, because I properly pace. I cover a big distance in 30 minutes. This is, calling it brisk is probably an understatement, you know what I'm saying? So Ben and I are going to the cinema tomorrow as another instalment of #Horror Club. We're going to go watch It season episode 2 or whatever it's called. Since we watched the first one, and that was, to be fair, the first film that got us into #Horror Club. Problem is Beth and Laura don't like horror films and refuse to watch them, as much as I try and get them to. So they're going out for food instead. But they're going out for food in town. Me and Ben are trying to organise which cinema to go to, so that we can, like, basically use the least amount of petrol, you know what I'm saying? So, like, does it make sense for me to drive Laura to Beth and Ben's, pick up Ben, go to the cinema, Beth then drives Laura into town? Or does it make sense for Ben to come and pick me up and drop off Beth at our house, in which case we go to a different cinema at the other side of town, and then Laura drives Beth into town? Or does it just make sense for me to go to Ben and Beth to come to Laura? It's crazy, man. It's like, who would have thought it would be so difficult, especially since we've already figured out which film we're going to go watch, and we're just trying to figure out which cinema to go to based on those two, and or when to leave and how to leave. But yeah, shit gets complicated, man. I feel like we should just not worry about it and I just go for Ben and Beth just comes for Laura. But I don't think Beth likes driving as much as Laura does. I say that as if Laura loves driving, but like, I don't think Beth likes driving, especially at night. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure, man. I think we need petrol. Petrol's really difficult to like gauge now. Because I used to be like, oh yeah, 3 bars of petrol, that'll get me through a week of driving to Bath and back every single day. But now, like, we never drive the car. So 3 bars should last forever. So I'm going to be one of those people now that just puts like a tenner in it and then just coasts around, unless we go for a long drive. But got my bread, boys and girls. Also, the fucking self-checkouts, man, are clearly been rebooted overnight because they took forever. Also, something that's always confused me, I've always been bemused by this, is why is it that old people, like properly old people, like retired people, feel the need to go and queue outside of a supermarket at 8 o'clock in the morning in the week? Like, you can go any time today. You've not got anything to do. You haven't got work to go to. It's not like you're going before work. And it's not like, I don't understand why they do it. But on the flip side of that, I also don't understand why people go on like a Saturday afternoon. If you've got the opportunity to go in the week, man. It's so much quieter. Just like, have a lie-in, dog. Like, stay inside. Because all you're gonna do is you're gonna get back to your house at 9 o'clock in the morning, and then you're gonna be bored. So, sleep in a little bit longer, stay up a little bit later. That's what I say. See, half of that is the opposite of what I say, to be honest. But right, first up, let's do some programming. Woof, man, this is complicated. So I'm trying to bind this Azure function to it. What's complicated is that, like, I can't run it locally very well because of what I'm binding it to, which is an Azure blob storage account. Because I'm binding it to that, running it locally is like kind of, that's the problem. I need to figure out how to run it locally. And then once I've run it locally, then I can move it to cloud. So what I did was I generated it in the cloud and run it in there in order to find out everything I've found out so far, like how to bind it and all that kind of stuff. Because the blog post I'm following a blog post where someone used this method to spin up containers, but that isn't spinning up images and adding them to, so it's like, it's different. But the one they're using is like an older version of functions. So there are like minor differences and stuff that keep tripping me, and it's goddamn annoying. But yeah, I feel like I'm trying to get it working where the function is running in the cloud. And that's posing a load of other technical difficulties. It's like you put it in the cloud, you've got the technical difficulty of authenticating it. You run it locally, you've got the technical difficulty of connecting it to the cloud. So it's like, pick your poison, basically. But I should be able to get it up and running. I should focus on getting it up and running locally. The thing is, like, this is like bleeding edge. Like PowerShell in the cloud, in an Azure function, is in preview. It's not generally available yet. So, yes. It's that kind of thing that's like quite exciting to work on in general. I'm just going to get a biscuit, mate. It's really, this is the kind of stuff that's really interesting and like really good fun when you're doing programming. Like solving problems that aren't necessarily cut and dry problems. So like in my old job, all of the problems that I don't want that. All of the problems that I fixed and did were problems I've solved before. Like there were the only complicated things was integrating with third-party APIs, stuff like that. But the in essence, it's taking data from an input and putting it to an output. This though is completely different. It's like completely new and really like fun and like kind of why is have I got me? I do. And like why I just have music playing. I like. What's so appealing about this, basically, is that I get to solve problems like this that I otherwise wouldn't get to solve all the time, by the looks of it. Got it working locally, boys and girls. It's one of the things, it's like a double-edged sword, really, with Azure and Microsoft stuff in general, is they're really good at making it really easy to spin things up. So like spinning up Azure functions in the web portal is absolutely piss easy. You can spin up whatever the fuck you want in like no time whatsoever. It takes like seconds to configure it all and run it. It's great. I love it, right? The problem is, it does a load of stuff for you that you don't know it's doing. So if you want to do it properly, i.e. like pull the code down separately so you can put it into source code, run it locally, run it on machines that aren't necessarily Azure and all that kind of shit. Like, finding out all the things that the web functionality does for you automatically is a pain in the ass. So I just had to add in the binding extensions, which is, it comes up on Azure portal. You go through it and you click on add bindings. It goes, you need this extension, you click install, it does it, hides it from you. You don't even know it's done it, basically. You click OK and it works. But you've got to have like a CS proj file just to get the extensions in, because it's pulling it down from NuGet, which makes sense, but it's just like, it catches you off guard, you know? There's a load of things that, there's loads of like complications that get added. And when you're trying to do all of this other stuff, the documentation isn't really there, because all the documentation is like geared towards making it as super easy as possible, making it as easy as possible, guys. You just press 3 buttons and it's done. But if you actually want to do it properly, no one's really writing blogs about that. So it's like a little bit more complicated. Like I say, it's great fun, but I've got the function working now in the cloud and on my machine. So the annoying thing is, because it's connected to blob storage, in fact, it might be worth checking, because it's connected to blob storage and it runs on updates of blob storage. I think I've just got to update the file a load of times to get it to run, which is a pain in the ass. Might see if I can avoid that somehow. I can run it in a storage emulator as well, to be fair. So I don't have to update the one in the cloud all the time. But how many T-bags have we got left in there, boys? But yeah, so I've got that sorted. Now all I need to do is take the file that's stored in blob storage, convert that to a file that's understood by the command line, and flump that motherfucker into a Docker repository, which is going to be a hoot. Yeah, it's taken me this long to get to the point where I can get that file into my function. That's It's not too bad. It's not too bad. But the other thing is, what was I going to say? I'm doing all of this in like a proof of concept area. So I have like on my file drive a sandbox area where I've got a shitload of folders of stuff where I sandbox things out. And then I'm going to migrate it to the real folder where it's going to be, like a new Git repository. And I'm trying to decide whether or not this is a wise idea, because I'm going to get it working and then I'm doing it so that I can get rid of like the crap that you generate, trying to get it working, you know, so I don't accidentally have anything in there that I don't really need, but I don't know I don't need it, if that makes sense. But I can tell 100% I'm going to finish it, get it working, and then be like, right, let's move it over. And then I'll move it over and it won't bloody work because I'd have missed something. Or it would have configured something locally in that folder, or something stupid like that. I don't know. This is where things start getting pricey, boys. Because we're spinning up shit in the cloud now that isn't free, to put it mildly. I've also got to be really hot on tidying up whatever it is that I have that I can delete, because it would be relatively trivial for the storage costs to get out of hand if I don't. So, what's behind me? Cool, no underwear or anything. It's also weird temperature today. It's like kind of warm but kind of cold at the same time. It's odd. So what we have now is we have the ability to, the user configures a pipeline. As soon as the pipeline becomes activated and is valid, we upload a file to storage, which is Azure storage. From there, that file, that storage is dirt cheap, by the way. From there, we then have a function that's sat listening for changes in that area. As soon as the file gets changed, it picks it up, runs the Docker build, and then uploads the Docker image into a registry, where I can now have something else listening to the registry, and or at some point I don't need to do it yet, I guess, but I need to tell something else as soon as it's there, potentially. Because that other thing wouldn't be able to run. That other thing has the data to be able to find it, but it wouldn't know it's there yet. That other thing also doesn't exist yet, by the way. So it's irrelevant for now. As soon as I have that data, so that's up in the what's-ma-do hick. I do need to focus on deleting stuff. So I think that should be my next story, because otherwise the cost of this thing will start to get out of hand, especially during development process, which is going to be a hoot, I think. Because it'll mean having to connect. Or hopefully I could delete the file from blob storage and then I can write a function that, oh god, that's crazy, isn't it? Either way, I'm quite happy with that now. All I need to do now, so I've got that running locally, i.e. I'm locally connected to the cloud running on my machine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move all of this into an actual source repository, deploy it up into the cloud and go through Azure pipelines, get it into a Git repo, create PRs and all that bullshit. It's going to be interesting building a build pipeline for this, because there's nothing to build. What the heck is going on? This is a huge step. This is a huge step forward. I've also tested pulling it back down from that repository, so I can pull it and build things locally using that image, which is good. I'm starting to think that my initial idea for how I was going to do this might become quite expensive. I was going to use Docker images to run all of my instances. But now looking at the cost of Docker images, I don't think that's really an option. So I might have to use another kind of storage, like another kind of dirt cheap storage. And I feel like what I'm going to have to do is Yeah. The ideal way of building this is really expensive. So I'm trying to cut corners. I say cut corners as well. What's that not closed? Trapping my phone charger in it. I'm trying to make it so that obviously I'm not just spending money for the sake of spending money. But yeah, cool. I'm happy with this so far. Like I say, when I get around to that bit, I think I am going to have to readdress how I'm going to do it. I'm probably going to store the source code in some kind of cheap storage, like blob storage, and then run my figure out a way of passing the commands in for the next part, so that I can just get that every single time. So kind of go out and download it in, fuck with it, then roll, rather than the other way around, which is kind of fuck with it, upload it, then roll from there, because that's costly for the sake of, like, that's trading compute. It's interesting balancing costs in the cloud, because compute has a price and storage has a price, and I was hoping to reduce the amount of compute because the storage would be cheap, but the storage for Azure for images isn't cheap at all. It's really expensive. So it probably makes more sense to shift to a compute model for that part. Whereas everything else is storage, because blob storage is filthy cheap, which is S3 for Amazon people, I think. Also, I'm not sure whether I'm going crazy or not, but I think my chair drops. See, it didn't then. I think my chair slowly drops over time. Because I come in, I'm like, oh, a bit lower. Press the thing, and I go up again. But maybe I press it and go down on it. Because whenever I'm paying attention for it, it doesn't happen. Okay, so my focus now is before lunch, about half an hour before lunch. I'm going to get this into my real repository, make sure it still runs, and then push it up to Azure DevOps. And then after lunch we can look at getting that deployed into the cloud. But I want to get some other stuff done today as well. So I'm kind of like halfway there. All I need to do is get it running in the cloud now. But yeah, I do want to get some other stuff done today. So it might be a long day today. It might be a good 9-10 hour a day again, to try and get everything done. I'm trying to get into the habit of writing a to-do list every morning and clearing it, you know? It's time for some lunch, boys, and I need to do some non-programming work after this. It's so addictive, though. So addictive. I could just finish it and then get on to it. We'll see. Sandwich time, boy. Earlier, I was thinking about putting my fleecy hoodie on. I haven't put my fleecy hoodie on all summer, so it would have been dire times. It basically admits that summer's over, right? And I'm like, you can't put your fleecy hoodie on now, because when it actually gets cold, you won't appreciate it, you know what I mean? Now, I've got my pyjama bottoms on because it's so goddamn hot. Otherwise though, I'm having an absolute party where I'm trying to solve all the problems that happen when you don't... I'm trying to initialize the app. I'm redeploying it again now. But the problem is I'm trying to test it and it's not starting. And when it doesn't start, it doesn't fucking help you. You know what I mean? Like, there's no help and support into why it is that it's failing. So I did it initially. I thought it was authentication. I set up all the authentication stuff. What I wanted to do was test it without authentication, prove that it didn't work, then run it with. So I ran it, didn't work. And I was like, okay, right, this must be the authentication thing. Let's try it. I'm looking for the logs. I'm like, I can't find the logs. I swear the logs are configured to be in this place here. No, it doesn't look like it. I then realised that basically the function isn't there, which is interesting, to say the least. But yeah, the function isn't there because of the way I was packaging it up. I packaged it up slightly wrong. I was one folder away from being right. I like wrapped it in another folder when I put in the zip file to deploy it. So I refixed that, ran it again, and now it wouldn't install the extensions. Remember saying that they had like extensions in a CS proj file? That wasn't happening for me. So I reran that again. Now got it so that I tried to do it manually. So I initially manually rebooted the extensions on the server and was like, well, I need to figure out how to do this manually, properly. Rerun it again. Turns out the manual way didn't work. I've just redeployed it now. It looks like it's taken the extension. Looks like it. So now I'm booting up the live stream for the logs. And I'm going to redo the file again for the 3 millionth time. And this time it'll work. So if I just click save now, it should light up my live stream with some stuff. It should spin up the server. And the thing, to add insult to injury here, some of this stuff is like delayed by up to 5 minutes. Because it's like Azure function, so it's like, it prioritizes everything else except for running it. So I kind of have to wait 5 minutes to figure out whether or not it should have ran. Whether or not it did run. You know what I mean? It's a pain in the goddamn ass. It's got to be said. I'm not having a whale of a time. And there was a time earlier as well where like, this application was running real slow too. I just kicked you. But see, I've just kicked it. I'm like, it's going to take 2 minutes for the package to appear. Or it's going to take me about 5 minutes to see the thing. Oh, there we go. Successful run. Oh, that was earlier. It didn't run successfully earlier. Oh, that was. Hang on. Whoa. It ran, ladies and gentlemen. It didn't run. It didn't work, but it ran. That's good. I've now got at least a stack trace that I can debug. God damn, man, this is taking longer than I expected it to. We'll get there. So it looks now like basically I generate the file because I get the blob storage as a stream, as a byte array, and I generate the file. It's failing to generate the file, but as soon as I've got the file, we should be rolling. It didn't look like it failed on the authentication to the registry, so we're Gucci at this point, I think. Just have to change the way it generates files. Oh my god, I've like spent about 6 hours on this so far. And it's like a 10-line PowerShell script. Like 6 of those lines are just logs, are like login useful information. There's literally 1 line's doing something. 2 lines are doing something. The rest are all logs. So, FML. We're getting there, boys. We're gonna have this done before I go on this walk. I've got 45 minutes before I go on my walk. Scratch that, ladies and gentlemen. It basically all failed. We'll get there, 45 minutes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like I'm stuck. I'm struggling, like I said, I knew I was going to a certain extent, struggle with the... Getting it running on my machine doesn't really prove much because it's running under my context. I thought authentication would be the only problem there. It looks like, in general, the permissions of the application might screw me a little bit because it doesn't look like it wants to create the file. Somewhat understandably, I could imagine why you wouldn't want an Azure function to create files next to itself. However, it would be beneficial if it could. So yeah, I can't really get it to create the file. I believe that's to do with authorization rights, and I can't get it to import the module, let alone authenticate to Azure. But like, there's a PowerShell module that I need to get it to import. And I think, to be honest with you, it's because I'm more or less jumping in, kind of at the wrong end of it, if you know what I mean. Like, I'm kind of jumping in at the deep end without fully understanding this. So I think I need to step back and have a read about how these things work. Read through some documentation, which never feels productive. But when I come back from lunch, I'll read through it tonight on my laptop, I think, downstairs, while watching TV or some shit like that. That sounds like a plan. I failed, ladies and gentlemen. I failed my 45 minutes. It failed. Alright, it's bedtime, ladies and gentlemen. I've solved most of my problems. I know now how to import modules. It was simple. Although I'm going to see if I can nail it down a little bit. The module I've imported, because you effectively add the code to the repo and deploy it. Because I've basically added the Azure module, it's fucking huge. So I'm going to see if I can figure out how that works and strip out all the stuff I don't want. Although if I deploy it, it's not the end of the world, particularly. but I don't really want to load all of that into the function itself if I don't have to. And otherwise, I'm still trying to find out why it is I can't create a file, and why creating a file basically errors saying it can't find the file. I'm assuming that, but I can't find any proof of this. I'm assuming that you can't create files in the repo, in the function itself. But I can't see any evidence of that. But I'm assuming that it's just a thing that they're not allowing. So I may have to Stack Overflow in that one tomorrow. But we'll find out, ladies and gentlemen. But I'm going to end this video. I'm not doing very well on video length. They always seem to be a bit too long. But I think one day isn't long enough, but 2 is too long. And I need to fucking catch up with myself because I'm so far behind. I'll catch you later.